This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Run Xiang's face also changed in horror. He had clearly seen Yunxiao injured with his true dragon's eye just now, so how did it become Zhao Wenjuan? Could Yunxiao's illusion fool his true dragon's eye? He turned his head and looked at Shui Xian. Princess Shui Xian, did you see clearly? Shui Xian's cold face also showed a trace of doubt, and she asked suspiciously, just now, there seemed to be a scarlet eye in the void that glared at me. My vision was blocked by an invisible force and I couldn't see the truth. Run Xiang sucked in a breath of cold air, and huge waves were set off in his heart. The bloodline of the Ocean Emperor Bo's family was born with the ability of extreme eyes, which could break through all illusionary techniques, just like their true dragon's eye. His true dragon's eye was not perfect. After all, his strength was far inferior to that of a true dragon, but Shui Xian's extreme eye was completely inherited, and yet she could not see through Yunxiao's illusion? How was this possible? Run Xiang's face was pale as he gently shook his head and thought, impossible, absolutely impossible, there must be some key point. Zhao Wenjuan only felt his entire body turn cold, and his clothes were completely soaked. How could he dare to attack again? He hurriedly said, Lord Yunxiao, I admit defeat. Thank you for your mercy, sir. What? Li Yunxiao won again? Those cultivators were stunned, as if they were somewhat dissatisfied. Didn't this guy say he was a 9th-tier alchemist? Are you a liar? That's right. No matter how powerful Li Yunxiao is, he's still too young. It's impossible for him to be so abnormal in both martial arts and sorcery. Yes, there must be a reason behind this. Everyone nodded in agreement. Baiming Lifeng's heart went cold. He had been overjoyed twice for nothing. Not only that, but he was also more and more afraid of Yunxiao's strength. He felt that the delicate back standing in front of him was no longer a mountain, but a sea of stars. He suddenly quivered and recovered from the fear in his heart. His face was even paler than Zhao Wenjuan's. The space gradually twisted, and countless fluorescent lights gathered from all directions, directly condensing into Yunxiao's true body. His face was cold and pale, and it was clear that the battle just now had not been easy. Shui Xian looked at Yunxiao and suddenly said, why did your pupils shrink just now? Yunxiao's body trembled, and his pupils suddenly shrank. An extremely fierce cold air shot down as he stared at Shui Xian, interrupting her. Shui Xian's body trembled. Under that gaze, she actually felt a trace of fear and her heart was filled with shock. She had the supreme bloodline of the Bo family, so she was born with no knowledge of fear. There was nothing in this world that could make her feel fear, but in that moment just now, it was the first time in her life that she had truly felt fear. What's going on? After the fear, Shui Xian's heart rippled, and she fell into a huge question mark. She was in a daze at the side. Only then did Yunxiao look away from Shui Xian and thought, Shui Xian, you're too weak. This girl has indeed inherited the Bo family's bloodline and has the eyes of truth that can see through everything. She's born to be my Moon Eye's nemesis. When Zhao Wenjuan saw Yunxiao appear, he hurried forward, bowed, and said, Thank you Lord Yunxiao for not killing me. No need to thank me, Yunxiao said coldly. You should thank yourself for not killing me. Zhao Wenjuan's entire body trembled. Fortunately, the first island lord had kept this person behind. Otherwise, he would have been beyond redemption. The entire spatial mystic artifact fell into an unusual silence. The ground was a mess of flesh and blood. It was a terrible sight. Zhao Wenjuan quickly composed himself and smiled apologetically. My lords, you have just arrived on the island and caused an unpleasant incident. This one has really neglected his duty, I hope you can forgive me. He started to beg for forgiveness with a very sincere attitude. Everyone politely greeted him. After all, he was a high-grade alchemist, and it was impossible for him to be so polite to him on the heavenly martial continent. Yunxiao flew down from the sky and slowly stepped on the ground as he said indifferently, It's fine. It's all thanks to your disciple that I was able to conveniently take care of those two people who I didn't like. Your disciple has done well. Cold sweat broke out on everyone's foreheads. He said it so blatantly, and he really didn't put the Red Moon City and Beiming Dark Palace in his eyes. Feeling everyone's scrutinizing eyes, Lechi's face was burning, and he felt as if there was a thorn on his back. He wished he could hide in a hole. Zhao Wenjuan was also stunned. He wiped his cold sweat and did not know how to continue. He could only smile awkwardly and say, Lord Yunxiao, seeing this place, will arrange to stay in this spatial profound artifact for a month on the island. Are you satisfied? He began to change the topic and introduced the spatial profound artifact. Every room was filled with a large number of cultivation resources. They were all yuan crystals fished up from the bottom of the sea, which were more precious than yuan stones. The itinerant martial artists were overjoyed when they saw this and couldn't help but start to put them into their storage bags in large quantities. Zhao Wenjuan was stunned. Everyone, this is. Those itinerant martial artists all revealed roguish expressions and said, we won't use that much in a month, so we're planning to pack it up and bring it back. Zhao Wenjuan, that's right. I forgot. You all are from Beiming Dark Palace? Beiming Lifeng hurriedly shook his head. They have nothing to do with us. Although we're going the same way, we're in two groups. Two groups? Two groups of people? Isn't it a little too unkind for young Master Lifeng to say such things? That's right, we've been through life and death together. Now, we've only taken a few origin crystals, and there are two groups of people? That's so disappointing. You called me Little Tian before you went out to sea, and now you're calling me Madame Nyo. Beiming Lifeng's face was filled with embarrassment, and when he saw the strange look in Shui Xian's eyes, he finally couldn't help but shout, if you don't want to die, shut up. He roared in anger, and as expected, it worked. These rogue cultivators only wanted to take some money, and none of them really wanted to offend the Beiming family. All of them lowered their heads and collected the origin crystals, no longer saying anything. Zhao Wenjuan laughed. Your sex experts are indeed very humorous. Beiming Lifeng's face darkened, turning red as he emphasized, I said there are two groups of people. All right, no need to explain. Zhao Wenjuan directly interrupted and turned to Shui Xian and the others, Princess Shui Xian, your status is too noble. I have already prepared the best room for you. Also, let's bring Sir Run Xiang and Sir Fei Ming along. After all, the Xiankong Island is a force of the Eastern Sea and is under the command of the Eastern Sea Lord. Run Xiang looked at Shui Xian with a pleading look. Shui Xian thought for a moment, then turned to Yunxiao, pointed at him, and said, no, I want to live with him. Voila. The crowd burst into an uproar, each and every one of them dumbstruck. Even the martial artists who were fighting for origin crystals all stopped, their mouths wide open. They held the origin crystals in their hands and forgot to put them into their storage bags. Yunxiao's mouth was wide open, and his face was covered in cold sweat. Beiming Lifeng's face turned as red as a pig's liver, and his eyes burst with towering rage as he glared at Yunxiao, his 10 fingernails digging into his flesh. Zhao Wenjuan wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said awkwardly, Princess Shui Xian, you're too bold. You have a noble status, and if anything happens to you, our Xiankong Island can't afford to take the responsibility. But, Shui Xian's face was still calm. She stared coldly at Yunxiao and said, you've taken Mosha's life profound artifact. If you don't return it to me, I'll follow you. Phew. It was a false alarm. The crowd heaved a sigh of relief, patted their chests, and continued to fight for origin crystals. Beiming Lifeng was stunned for a moment before his expression returned to normal. He couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. He was shocked to find that he had completely fallen into a state of infatuation with Shui Xian. To a genius, this was a huge obstacle in his martial path. But how could a person control their feelings? He also realized that he was on the verge of perdition, but he could not hold on any longer. Beiming Lifeng's eyes were filled with infatuation. His greedy gaze fell on Shui Xian, admiring her every move and smile. Ming Kongtian saw all of his expressions, and he showed deep concern and worry. Yunxiao smiled slyly. Didn't I tell you just now? Why should I care if you want to save Mo Sha? He asked. It was Run Xiang who injured him, you have to find him. Don't lie to me. Shui Xian said seriously. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and there's a problem with it. The one who injured Mo Sha was Run Xiang, but his life-profound weapon is in your hands, so he still has to find you to save Mo Sha. With an innocent face, Run Xiang cried, Princess Shui Xian, you've finally thought it through. A cold light flashed in Shui Xian's eyes, and she said, Li Yunxiao, if you don't hand over the Black Flame Mountain, don't blame me for being impolite to you. Yunxiao rolled his eyes and said with a smile, I can give you the Black Flame Mountain, but you have to give me something in exchange. Shui Xian frowned and asked, what is it? I don't have many things on me. I'm sure you have this thing with you. Yunxiao narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. I'm sure you have it. His lecherous expression of sizing him up fell into everyone's eyes, and they suddenly had a bad feeling. Li Yunxiao. Ming Lifeng was even more shocked and angry. What kind of stupid idea are you thinking in your head? Get rid of it now. Run Xiang's face also turned cold as he shouted, Li Yunxiao, if you had made that request, I would have killed you right now. Shui Xian was confused, what request? How come you all seem to know his request, but I don't? Everyone's faces were covered in sweat, and they could not explain it. But, they all kept their eyes fixed on Yunxiao, fearing that he would say something outrageous. Yunxiao's eyes flickered as he stared at Shui Xian and said, it's simple. It's your blood. What? Everyone's expression changed drastically, as if a thunderbolt had struck, each and every one of them was shaken until they were confused. This request was even more shocking than what they had expected, and all of them revealed extremely terrified expressions. Run Xiang also shouted in shock, Li Yunxiao. You dare to covet the Sea Emperor's blood? No one in this world can save you. I've heard that so many times that my ears are getting calluses, Yunxiao sneered. Can you change your sentence? Even if no one in the world can save me, what does it have to do with you? Why are you so excited? You should die. This is a great disrespect to Poseidon. Run Xiang's eyes were spitting fire. The Sea Emperor was one of the 3 people he admired the most, after all, and he could not tolerate anyone blaspheming him. You know that he is only the Sea Emperor, not the human emperor, Yunxiao said contemptuously. Did he respect me first? If not, then why should I respect him? If you want to gain the respect of others, you must first respect others. This is the simplest principle of being a human. You Poseidon don't understand this, do you? You. Run Xiang held his breath and couldn't say it out loud. He said angrily, in short, this is a great crime worthy of death. Shui Xian's face also turned ugly. She gritted her teeth and said, Father once said that the Bo family's bloodline is extremely noble, and no one in the world would dare to have any ideas about it. Otherwise, we would kill that person even if it meant going to heaven or hell. Yunxiao spread his hands and said helplessly, then there's no other way. Trading is about freedom. I like the Black Hot Mountain very much. I'm leaving. After he finished speaking, he completely ignored everyone's shocked expressions and directly headed towards a courtyard. The 3 marine race experts all had gloomy expressions. Fei Ming said coldly, this man is lawless. Why don't you let me find an opportunity to get rid of him and take back the Black Flame Mountain? When Shui Xian saw Yunxiao disappear into the courtyard, she also wanted to follow him with a cold face. Shocked, Run Xiang and the others hurriedly stopped her. Zhao Wenjuan's forehead was also covered in cold sweat. If Shui Xian followed Yunxiao, something would happen to him, and Xiankong Island would really be finished. I see that although Mr. Mo Sha's injuries are serious, he's not dead yet. Why don't you let me try to treat him first? Yes, Mr. Wenjuan is a 9th-tier alchemist. He must have a way. Run Xiang also hurriedly said. He was now extremely regretful that he had severely injured Mo Sha and caused so much trouble. All right, Will do as you say, Mr. Wenjian, Shui Xian said after a slight hesitation. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. Zhao Wenjian greeted everyone and left with the 3 marine race experts. The space within the profound artifact was extremely large, and almost everyone could be allocated a small courtyard. Very quickly, they all moved in. Liao Yongbing pondered for a while, then walked to Yunxiao's courtyard, condensed a message in a jade token, and sent it into it. After that, he settled down nearby. There were individual cultivation rooms in the courtyards. As soon as Yunxiao entered, he cast a few restrictive spells to isolate the entire secret room from the outside world. It was very likely that this kind of spatial mystic artifact had already been refined by Zhao Wenjian. As the owner of the spatial mystic artifact, Zhao Wenjian could sense every move inside. After doing all this, he flipped his hand and the black flame mountain appeared in his palm. It emitted a hot light and black flames. Suddenly, the flames condensed on the Montenegro and formed a beast's head. It was Emosha's appearance. He roared and rushed down. Yunxiao smiled faintly. It was just a trace of demonic sand divine sense left on Black Hot Mountain, which drove the profound level weapon and the power of flames to attack. A mocking smile appeared on his face as he opened the immemorial heavenly eye between his brows and spat out a faint red flame. The beast head congealed from the black flames suddenly convulsed, revealing a frightened expression. It retreated backward without even thinking about attacking, and at the same time, it drove the black flame mountain to bombard down. Bang! When the black flame mountain hit the divine flame, it immediately became several times bigger and filled up a small half of the space. It emitted a black light that constantly resisted the divine flame. The beast's head also flew directly into the mountain, and black flames surged out from the mountain, blocking the divine fire. It's indeed a profound level weapon refined by Tianhuan's Haizi. Yunxiao's eyes shone with great joy. Every 100,000 years, the sun would produce an extremely strong celestial phenomenon. In its extremely hot interior, a type of black particle would gradually condense, and an energy storm that could not be eliminated would be produced around each particle. As time passed, more and more black pieces appeared, and the number of storms increased. Finally, these black pieces and the storms gathered together, creating a strange phenomenon called the Big Dipper. Once the Big Dipper appeared, it would bring forth a destructive power that would impact the 4 poles of the universe, accompanied by a large number of flaming meteorites that fell into the heavenly martial arts realm. These meteorites would sometimes be mixed with those black particles. This kind of black particle did not have a degree of dissolution and was indestructible. Therefore, it was also the best material to refine fire attribute profound armaments. However, it was also because there was no such material as fire that the black particle had been regarded as useless for a long time. Until the appearance of a genius alchemist, who believed that all things were born of the 5 elements, and that they were mutually reinforcing and restricting each other, and that there would never be anything that could not be fused with the 5 elements. In the end, he finally found a way to refine them, which was to use extremely strong wind elements to dissolve them. From then on, the black particle became a top-tier alchemy material. In his previous life, Yunxiao had been looking for black particles many times, trying to refine a magic cauldron. But now that he had the cauldron of mountain and river, he no longer needed it. This Tianhuan's Haizi mountain has enough weight. However, the level of this black flame is too low. If I were to fuse it with my divine flame, its power would be incomparable to before. Yunxiao raised the hammer high and smashed it down on the black flame mountain, sending bolts of lightning into it. Boom boom boom. The mountain was not damaged by the lightning, but the demon sand's divine sense was constantly struck by the lightning. Roar. A furious roar came from inside, and countless black flames gathered to form the head of a beast again, rushing out from inside. However, as soon as it appeared, the divine fire that was burning the Montenegro mountain rushed forward and extinguished the black flames like a basin of water. Ah! Emosha's spiritual sense let out a painful wail and finally disappeared. The divine flames did not extinguish the black flames. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the color of the flames had changed slightly. They had actually directly absorbed the black flames. At this moment, on the Xiankong Island, in an extremely luxurious residence, Zhao Wenjuan was leading the 3 members of the sea race to settle down. Suddenly, Commander Mo Sha, who was being hugged by the golden armored guards, let out a blood-curdling screech. His body stiffened, and his eyes directly protruded out. The few of them were shocked. Shui Xian was even more shocked. Mo Sha, what's wrong? A hoarse voice came from Mo Sha's throat. It was as if he wanted to say something, but he still could not hold on. He relaxed his strength and fainted again. Mr. Wenjuan, what happened to Mo Sha? Shui Xian asked in a panic. Zhao Wenjuan hurriedly sent his divine sense into Mo Sha's body. His expression became gloomy and uncertain. After a while, he retracted his divine sense and lowered his head in silence. Mr. Wenjuan, what happened to him just now? Run Xiang asked in a low voice. Zhao Wenjuan hesitated for a moment before saying, if I'm not wrong, his natal mystic artifact has been refined by Yunxiao, cutting off the little connection between him and the mystic artifact. That's why his mind has suffered a backlash. Damn that Li Yunxiao. Shui Xian's eyes flashed with a touch of coldness. Golden light shot out from her body, and her killing intent was aroused. This is actually not a bad thing, Zhao Wenjuan said hurriedly. Without Li Yunxiao's interference in the process of treating him, it will be safer. Shui Xian's gaze was cold, and her face was filled with anger as she said, I'll leave it to you then. In a secret chamber in a small courtyard, Yunxiao sat cross-legged in the air, constantly refining the Heizi mountain. What Yunxiao wanted to do was to maximize the power of his divine flame with the help of Heizi mountain. After all, it had been nurtured in heavenly spirits for countless years, and it had a very strong amplification effect on flames. It seems that this Heizi mountain has been refined by Mo Sha for too long. After absorbing his black flames, I have a strong affinity with this treasure. This has saved me a lot of effort. Yunxiao muttered to himself for a while, then changed his hand seal. A golden symbol flew out, enlarged in the air, and shot into the flames that filled the sky. The faint red flames became violent in the sky and shrank back into Mount Heizi. In the end, they all gathered together, and the color of the entire mountain turned from black to a faint red like flames. Yunxiao's eyes were filled with surprise. Heizi's material was extremely hard, and nothing could hurt him except for his powerful wind element power, let alone change his color. And it's probably because the power of this flame is too strong that even Heizi can't quite withstand it. Yunxiao pondered for a moment, then a strong wind spun in his hand and whistled toward the top of Heizi mountain. The impenetrable Heizi mountain began to disintegrate under the spinning wind, turning into particles that burst out of the mountain. Those particles emitted a fiery red glow, and each of them contained an extremely strong flame. They were like thousands of fireflies dancing in the sky. Yunxiao's face lit up with joy. He quickly performed incantation gestures in front of him, sending one incantation seal after another into it to slowly suppress the violent aura inside. After an unknown amount of time, the particle storm gradually calmed down and gathered toward the center. Pili Pala. The sky was filled with the sound of tiny particles, which grew louder and louder. A black ball kept forming in the air, and finally turned into a small crocodile that was 3 feet long, lying quietly on the ground. Yunxiao looked at it carefully. The crocodile maintained the color of Heizi, but under the perception of his divine sense, he found that the power of fire contained in it was so strong that even the probing divine sense was burned away. Hey, don't just lie there and not move. Come over here. Shut up. Yunxiao scolded, his eyes flashing with a cold light. The crocodile opened its eyes, stretched its limbs lazily, and began to crawl toward him. Every step he took brought Yunxiao great pressure, as if a mountain was pressing on his heart. The demonic dragon in his soul suddenly opened his eyes and said coldly, "This thing doesn't seem to be honest." "Stupid thing," Yunxiao said sarcastically. "You think you can escape from me just because you got a little power?" His eyes turned cold as he stared at the unruly crocodile.